Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. In any democratic setup or even in dictatorship with every changing government, there is a change in the policies, both domestic and foreign. And that is there necessary as well because the foreign policy of the country has two objectives. One is the good of the country. The second is the party's ideology and manifesto. Now you would possibly be thinking that if there is a conflict between the two, normally no political party would have any policy which are detrimental to the interest of the country. It's quite possible that in the long run they may be harmful, but when they're made with the best of intentions. And the people who think that the foreign policy is something like a line drawn in stone that cannot be changed are mistaken. Of course, for the first about 20 to 30 years, because of the continuity of Nehru, then Mrs. Gandhi, and then their proteges, even if they belong to the different parties, they had been brought up and, as a matter of fact, made to believe that the policies laid down by Nehru were inviolable. The foreign policy had become synonymous with Nehru's thought, Nehruvian philosophy. Not necessarily that it was bad, it was good at the time. It enabled India to stand out as a leading country, full of morality, ethics, and impartiality. It was friendly with Russia, and yet it could criticize Russian operations in Hungary, which any government which was so dependent on Russia would not dare do so. But with the coming in of Modi, there has been a change. However, fortunately, in a democratic setup, the bureaucracy does not change that much as the political leadership does, and even wants them to be. They have been set in their mind, they have their own thoughts, so they prepare, and even when the outward form looks similar, are different, the essential content may be similar. If you remember, there was an international conference in Vietnam in 2014, and a group of foreign policy experts there were concerned about India's foreign policy under Prime Minister Modi because Modi had come in power. So at that time, the Indian political leadership explained to them that the Indian foreign policy, and that was the first exposure of the Indian leadership at an international forum. And they said that the Indian foreign policy would strive to improve ties with key states to aid economic development and enhance its global standing while fostering security interests. Very simple, any policy would be like that. Nothing contradictory, nothing exuberant, matter of fact. But the foreign experts expressed their doubts, pointing out the complexities in international relations, which had immensely changed and the strategic equations were in a state of flux. So again, a similar group met in 2017 in Moscow, and then those very foreign policy experts who had their doubts, apprehensions, fears, they admired Modi's because of his deft handling of the major powers, equidistant and yet very friendly. And significantly, they were appreciative of the fact that he has raised the level of relationship with these powers. By this time, Modi had not only developed personal rapport with Obama and Trump, but also with Putin, and was in the process of ironing out irritants between Russia and India. With China, the meeting had taken place. India had taken a firm position at Dr.Lamba without scumbag, without showing fear, and without being aggressive. And it was felt that the policies were in continuity. There was not much change. But the process has changed. Now here is a major difference which people who are not aware that diplomacy, the process is sometimes more important than the policy is. So here the policy per se had remained the same as it was earlier. We are good, we'll help you good, but our security is our own. However, the process, how to do that, changed. And Modi was showing a keenness to play an important role in the international environment and managing conflict interests in India's favor. As a matter of fact, he was very fond, he is rather, of quoting Morgenthau, one of the international politics, like all politics, because it's a struggle for power. Ultimately, it's a power game. And he who has experience in politics can easily deal with the international affairs. And Modi has been expert in this game. Since then, more time has elapsed. People have criticized Modi, they have praised Modi. But let's see what are the major attributes. And you would find, if you study minutely under a microscope, there are very notable features of Modi's foreign policy. First, most important, he treats foreign policy as an instrument of national interest and approaches the rival nations with this postulation without worrying about their own policy orientations. Earlier there used to be hesitancy, rivalry among the nations, there was a feeling, well, if we say something we might not hurt their sensibilities. Now, the question of hurting the sensibilities was put on the back burner. So, fact remains the same that national interest is important. But that process of not hurting was over. If the hurt has to be there, it has to be there. So, that hesitation was replaced by boldness, clear objective that related to India for the mutual benefit. So, what he did? He joined Quad, USA, Japan, Australia. Clear objective of common prosperity and security against a common rule-based order. Secondly, he joined another Quad in West Asia with US, UAE and Israel for economic prosperity, and both were irritants to the major opponents, China and Israel. We have been depending on Israel for a long time, but he was the first prime minister to visit Israel. But then, look at the deft handling. He continues the meeting with Russia, RIC and BRICS. With Russia, closer links have been established on Afghanistan and Central Asian Republic. And efforts are on for operation of international north-south transport corridor, which might be an alternative to BRI. With Iran, we are making efforts an alternative to Tapi gas plant. So this was good. And during Putin's recent visit to India, just a couple of months back, Russia agreed to have consultation on India-Pacific oceans, indicating that Putin agrees with the India concept of Indo-Pacific. And India, regardless of US pressure, is acquiring Russian as 400 missiles. No, see, Turkey takes these missiles and there is an embargo and Turkey is a member of NATO. India takes over and USA cries but doesn't has any objection and does not levy any sanctions. And India is not a NATO member. So what he has done is that he has deftly played the game of being indispensable For USA is indispensable to deal with China. For Russia is indispensable for dealing with Indo-Pacific region. So that's the first feature. The second one is this concept of Sagar. Now Sagar is security and growth for all regions based on economic and strategic importance. And this is not merely for the domestic needs. I feel that he has internalized Chanakya's axiom. There is some self-interest behind every friendship. There can be no friendship without self-interest. This is the bitter truth. And he is putting that into practice. He has revamped Look East policy into Act East policy. From just looking, from being an observer, he has become a major player. His management of the relationship with Saudi Arabia, with Israel, UAE and Iran marks him out as a mastermind. Earlier hesitancy did not allow India to make use of the full potential of relations with them. India was bound. Well, if you have full relationship with Israel, Palestinians will get angry. And if Palestinians get angry, then the Muslim world will get angry. He didn't do it. So much so that OIC, which when Indira Gandhi sent Gurbachan Singh as an ambassador, he was not allowed to enter. But this time, India was a favorite country and was a guest of honor. That's the success of foreign policy. Third, his concept of effective multilateralism. Now, this is for the first time that India used to say we are not aligned. He also says, but he calls it effective multilateralism. We are friends of everybody. That's it. Not aligned means you are neither friend nor enemy. So this concept, the third feature, effective multilateralism, captures the reality of the rise of many nations and accepts that the voice of many, not the views of few, should shape the global world. Based on this, he has developed relations with those countries. He became the first PM in India to visit Mongolia, upgraded effective strategic partnership in 2015. In 2016, Modi elevated relationship with Vietnam to comprehensive strategic partnership. As I already told you, he made the first visit to Israel in 2017. And relationship has been upgraded to strategic level. First Prime Minister since 1986 to visit Canada and UAE. Also renewed efforts to build with neighbors, branded. Now they have been called neighbors first. Can you believe? Land border agreement with Bangladesh has been resolved, and that was a major bone of contention. Fourth attribute, Modi has tried to pragmatically integrate foreign policy with a domestic economic growth. He has created a push to invite FDI into India, despite opposition from the political parties in India. He uses foreign agreements to support in Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, based on pragmatism. And he attempts to weaponize interdependence. India shares the preferential market access and preferential economic trade agreement with more than 50 countries, and is going to have free trade agreement with Australia, UAE and European Union. Can anything be better? Fifth attribute, he boldly uses India's diaspora, which has not been used earlier. The Prime Minister would come, they will be lionized, but he uses them. And they become the ambassadors, unofficial ambassadors. And they are levers in the foreign countries, resulting in raising their stature in the influential political developments. As a sixth attribute, he doesn't believe in dawdling. He punished Pakistan for its mischief, surgical operations and Balakot strike. And that was another benefit of those strikes. People think that there was only reprisals. No. Pakistan always used to say that it's a nuclear power and there was a danger of nuclear conflagration. So he said, okay, let's see. And the result was Pakistan did not dare use the nuclear option. So that blackmailing tactic of Pakistan was exposed. So you can say that PM Modi, while the objectives have remained the same, as I said earlier, basic objective, good of the country, that has remained the same. But the processes to achieve goal have undergone a transformation beyond recognition. India has become more assertive in striving to achieve its goals. At one time, India was very assertive under Mrs. Gandhi, yes, but then it fell on evil days. The prime ministers were paper tigers, not even paper tigers. They were dolls at the most. Mouthpieces would make mumbles and jumbles and not say anything. The only one good thing Manmohan Singh did was to stop the foreign aid. That was a great achievement. But they could not make an impact. And now India comes forward even in the climate change and things like that. So it has become more assertive. And it has become a major player in international stature. It has a central position in the Quad, and Russia is coordinating within Afghanistan. Now imagine, on the one side you are a member of the Quad, which is against totalitarian states, and then you are a partner with them in Afghanistan and the Central Asian republics. It sits with Russia and China and RAC and BRICS on equal footing. Many groups are not new, but now India has more influence in each group. And it goes to Modi's credit that India is playing a major role. But then, to say everything is honky-dory would be wrong. There are challenges which need to be tackled. And unfortunately, they have not been tackled. We have not been able to tackle Nepal issue, which is a major issue. With Maldives and Malay, our relationships are just verging on collapse. So, our neighborhood is a victim of the problems created by China-Pakistan axis. And the contentious issues should have been resolved by now. India has not been able to resolve Bhutan issue, Tibet issue, Nepal issue, even Bangladesh and Burma, Myanmar. So India is making efforts, but they are not very successful. The combination of China as economic power, as is believed to be, and Pakistan as a troublemaker, are creating hurdles. So India is making efforts, but they are vain efforts. You have got to oppose this two-front pressure, and then inside the deepening of the division in the Indian society. I wrote an article yesterday, you might have seen, that there are Indian people who are joining the foreign agencies, collaborating with them to the harm of India. And the judiciary is giving them protection under the mistaken notion that all are innocent before proven guilty. And proven guilty means about 10 to 12 years. What we need is more innovation. We need to have more options, innovative options, to change the behavior. And in this context, I would suggest that Modi should adopt the Chanakya's another axiom. He adopted one maxim that self-interest is the base of every friendship. Fine. There is another axiom which he needs to adopt to give a nice shape to Indian foreign policy, and that is, enemy should be struck at his weak point. That deserves serious attention. Broach issue is a major issue. Why are we not doing anything? That would, now Taliban issue in Afghanistan is creating hurdles for Pakistan. We should exploit that. Tibet, Taiwan. We should use those serves. So we have got to strike with the weak points of our opponents. And here we are not doing that much. By barring that, as I told you the key features, the policy is having its distinctive features, and that is good for the country. Thank you.